Chapter 73 is called The Pigeons. In the very heart of the city was a very great swath of greenery. The old park. It had rolling lawns and flower gardens and dense wooded areas. It had lakes and ponds and fountains. It had playgrounds and benches and miles of cobblestone pathways. It also had pigeons. Thousands and thousands of pigeons. The city pigeons witnessed things you wouldn't believe. Nothing shocked them. They certainly weren't shocked by robots. So when Roz marched into the middle of the park, the pigeons there weren't troubled in the least. She approached a flock that was about 100 birds strong, all cooing and strutting across the cobblestone as if they owned the place. But as Roz stomped closer and closer, the pigeons scuttled out of the way to let her pass by. However, Roz didn't pass by. She stopped and glanced around, and when she saw that she was alone with the pigeons, she started speaking to them in the language of the animals. "Hello, pigeons. My name is Roz." The pigeons cocked their heads, which meant, "Is this robot actually speaking to us?" "Yes, I am actually speaking to you," continued Roz. "I am searching for my son. He is a goose named Brightbill. Have you seen him?" For the first time in a long time, the pigeons were shocked. Several of them fluttered away from the talking robot, but most were too curious to leave. One pigeon was so curious that she strutted out from the flock and right up to the robot. "So let me get this straight," said the curious pigeon. "Your name's Roz, and you've got a son named Brightbill, who's a goose?" "That is correct." "I can't believe it." The pigeon flapped her wings and turned to the others. "You guys, this is Roz from Graybeak's Stories. Remember?" The flock began cooing excitedly. "You have heard of Graybeak?" said Roz. "Everyone's heard of Graybeak," said the pigeon. A while back, she started telling stories about a goose whose mother was some kind of wild robot. We all thought she was joking, but I guess not. She was not joking. "But I have lost my son, and I do not know how to find him. Perhaps Graybeak could help. Do you know where she is?" "I hate to tell you this, Roz, but Graybeak is dead." The birds all lowered their heads. "You know, life ain't easy for us pigeons. We only live a few years out here if we're lucky. But we were especially sad when we lost Graybeak. She was one of the best." The others cooed in agreement. "I am sorry for your loss. I wish I had gotten to meet Graybeak. My son was very fond of her." The pigeon gazed up at the robot with a steely look in her eye. "Any friend of Graybeak is a friend of ours. If Brightbill is lost, we're going to find him." She turned to the others. "You heard me, flock. Hit the skies and tell every pigeon you see to start searching for a goose named Brightbill." At those words, the flock erupted into flight. Only the robot and the curious pigeon remained. "By the way, they call me Strutter," said the pigeon, fluffing out her chest feathers. "It is very nice to meet you, Strutter," said the robot. "Thank you for searching for Brightbill. What can I do to help?" "You can help by staying put. I want you in this park when we return with your son. Don't hide or wander off and make us go searching for you, too. Oh, and another thing," Strutter added, "stay away from the park ranger robot. He spends most of his time taking care of the grounds, but he is always on the lookout for troublemakers." The pigeon gave a quick salute to the robot, then she joined the search for Brightbill. Chapter 74, The Sky. Hours passed, and the sun set in the west. More hours passed, and the eastern sky began to glow. Roz spent that whole night in the park waiting for Strutter to return with Brightbill, but there was no sign of them. In fact, there weren't any birds in the park at all. Roz couldn't let those thoughts distract her. She needed to stay alert. The park ranger robot had seen her once or twice already, and now she heard his footsteps wherever she went. Was the park ranger following Roz? Had he noticed our robot's unit number? Would he report her to the recos? Roz took a pathway into the woods, trying to escape the ranger's view, and that's when she heard familiar voices calling from the sky. "Where are you, Ma?" said Brightbill. "Come on out, Roz," said Strutter. Roz turned toward the voices, but saw only leaves and branches. Brightbill and Strutter were flying somewhere above the woods. She wanted to call back, but the park ranger was still trailing her. Instead, she followed the sounds of their voices as they glided over the treetops. But then there came a new sound, a buzzing sound. It grew louder and closer. Air started blasting down from the sky, and when Roz looked up, she saw a white triangular airship floating above her. Chapter 75. The Ricos. 3 robots zipped down from the airship on cables. The ground shook as their heavy feet slammed against the cobblestones. Then they stood side by side, forming a wall with their eyes locked on Roz. They were 4, 5, and 6. "Hello, Rosum Unit 7134. We are the Ricos. Please come with us." The robotic voice belonged to Rico 4. He and his partners waited for their target to come forward, but Roz didn't move. She knew how dangerous the Ricos could be, and so did her son. From somewhere in the sky, Brightbill's frightened voice cried out, "Run, Ma, run!" So Roz ran. She dashed up the pathway and leaped into the woods. Without crunching a weed, without rustling a leaf, the robot vanished into the thick foliage. The Ricos weren't concerned. They had other ways of tracking her, or so they thought. Their blocky heads swiveled from side to side, scanning the woods for Roz's electronic signal. They scanned and scanned and scanned, but they found no trace of their target.